So I am so happy to introduce our guest speaker for this session. Our session today is called Better Experiences at Scale, Advancing Customer Experiences Across New York State. Today, we are thrilled and honored to have New York State's Abbey Kos joining us. Abbey Kos serves as New York's Deputy Chief Customer Experience Officer, bringing more than 15 years of experience leading digital transformation for public sector institutions in the US and also in the UK. Before joining the executive chamber, she worked at Amazon Web Services, serving state and local governments nationwide, and previously served as director of strategy at 18F, where she helped launch government-wide service design efforts during COVID-19. She has led major work in responsible technology, service design, and digital modernization, and is widely recognized as a national voice in customer experience in government. Abby's full bio is available on the session page of our conference website if you want to read more, but I am going to stop talking and turn it over to her. So welcome, Abby. We're so thrilled to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for thinking of us and for thinking of New York. Thank you for coming back after lunch to another session in the day. We're really excited about this event. Congratulations on your first annual conference. And just congratulations on this work that you have been kicking off and moving forward and really delivering. I was saying earlier, it's incredible to see how much you have done in a relatively short amount of time. I think it's really incredible. So I am going to take you through a presentation. Like Anne said, it's Better Experiences at Scale, Advancing Customer Experience Across New York State. So let me go ahead and actually kind of do a baseline on what that means for us. So Governor Hochul herself is a former head of a DMV. She is somebody who has been committed to customer experience throughout her entire political career. And so it makes a lot of sense that CX is a spot that is special for her personally and that she just fundamentally gets. And so the way that she has thought about this is faster, simpler, and more equitable state government. And what you can see on the left is our customer experience strategy, which is called the New York Experience. And the way that we think about it is that's really our strategy for delivering on the vision for the state. So what does that mean? It means, first of all, having a team like this. These three people on the page are the Governor's Office of Customer Experience for the state of New York. We are so proud and honored to be the first governor-appointed CX office in the country. And we're three people who bring really different things to the table. So Tanya Webster, our chief CXO, has an incredible background in the private sector. She is somebody who has done, whether it's health insurance, whether it's credit cards, places where people really need things to work effectively and they need things to work the first time and they need things to be designed for them. She really brings that breadth and depth of experience of what it's like to need something that you kind of can't do without, right? I am someone whose background is a little bit more traditional public sector. I started, I was a public affairs kid for a long time, for about 10 years, and then retrained as a content designer, user researcher, spent time doing digital design in the UK, then 18F, working with the White House, and then finally at AWS. And then Samantha Slusher is our Empire Fellow. She is a mid-career person who's transitioning into the public sector. Her background is in comms, but also marketing and nonprofits. So she previously ran a nonprofit. This is the team that sits within the governor's office and helps guide policy, recommendations, helps unblock things, helps make sure that people have what they need to be successful. And so here's what some of that looks like. Tanya was appointed in 2023, and since then there has been a tremendous amount of statewide work. So one of our big highlights was Direct File. We worked with Code for America and the IRS to create a service where 12,000 New Yorkers could file their taxes directly with the state and the IRS for free. We were so proud to be a state pilot with this incredible national program. 55% of them had paid to submit their taxes before. They found that the time to file was reduced by about 3/4, and customer satisfaction was 98%. These are wild numbers. One of my favorite facts about this is that more people like Direct File than like ice cream. 97% of people like ice cream and 98% of people like Direct File. I have never heard of another government service that people like more than ice cream, but there you go. Sometimes the work that is done in New York that's transformational is, a deep program like that, something really specific for a moment in time. Sometimes it's really broad across an entire agency. So the Higher Education Services Corporation, this is the agency that helps New Yorkers pay for college. And so their CX program, what they've really done is focused on being better for students. And so by shifting to virtual events, they were able to increase their event attendance by 350%. They grew their texting program. They increased their social media reach. They published their first agile procurement. All of this, Bev, I need you to go, please. Bev, I'm sorry, there's a little girl in a Mario costume. I need you to leave right now, please. No, I need you to go. Thank you for your patience. So, yeah, so we also published our first agile procurement, which is a huge step towards being able to buy and deliver services better. Not just our ability to know what works, but to be able to make sure that we're able to hold our vendors to that account. And sometimes that work really looks broad, like some of our agencies that support one another. So our Office of General Services has really incredible deep expertise. And so in the past year, they have revamped some of our highest value websites and massively increased usage. They have simplified to lead to ways that are 553% increase. They have tracked 375 million events monthly. New York is a state that has committed to customer service in such a way that, whether it is an individual program that makes a huge difference, or it is an agency-wide transformation that is having a huge impact, or it is an agency that's really supporting each other, it's really, really made a big difference. Okay, so let me step back. Let's talk a little bit about how we do what we do. I think there's a lot of good information available in the world about like what to do, the right way to do things. So I need you to go. No girls. The right way to do things. But we don't spend a lot of time talking about how we do things, how you can be successful, how you can build that work. And so these are three sort of tenets. They're not on the internet. We haven't really written them down before, but they're kind of the ways that we live our work. And so I'll walk you through what those mean, share some examples, and kind of offer some best practices. So the first is that we let CX supercharge what we know. We kind of take ourselves as experts in the places that we've been for years and years and years. That could be approaches that we've had, things that we've cared about, the expertise that we bring to government. CX is a layer on top that amplifies. It doesn't take the place of things. It doesn't imply that nobody doesn't know what they're doing, right? We also make CX everyone's mission. We make it a statewide priority. It helps in New York that we have such gubernatorial buy-in, but the ways that we present ourselves, the ways that we make it for everybody, it becomes a collective effort. And then finally, we really strive to make our work a good experience, what it's like to work with us, to collaborate with us as a CX team. So to go into these a little bit more deeply, first, we let CX supercharge what we know. And you can see these are all going to be images from our most recent CX summit. It is, the first time that we were able to get hundreds of people from across the state together to really understand and share and celebrate the work that we've been doing. And so on stage there are three of our commissioners who have done really incredible work for us, and they have really been leaders in this space. So I touched on this, right? The New York experience is our strategy for delivering on the governor's vision. But that doesn't mean that we have never thought about any of this before. We have really been tackling these issues as a state for a long, long time. So let me give you a few examples. Years before the CX team existed, years before I got here, really hardworking civil servants had been finding opportunities to make changes. And so some of that work has turned into a team that we have called the New York State Digital Services. They are our experts in UX and content. They are killer at data analytics. They lead our cross-agency pilots. They create a job family that helps agencies bring in digital skills. You can see some of this on the right, images of what they do. Like they're in charge of making sure that 988 is really adequately described. They just do incredible work, right? Another team that also sprung up organically around a decade ago. It's called the Bureau of Digital Experience at ITS. And just like the other team is really our sort of front end leaders and folks who understand analytics, these are our back end and very sort of product focused teams. So they're amazing at accessibility prototyping. They own 30 call centers across the state. They own and they lead our design system. They are moving us towards a product model. And the reason I bring these teams up is because they existed long before we got here. They're not our competition, they're our allies and our friends. And they are incredible resources that we lean on constantly. Likewise, even agencies that aren't built to be focusing in this particular way have done really incredible work. So again, years before we got here, modernization milestones for labor, really focusing on customer experience. The DMV leaning really heavily in what it means to shatter people's expectations in the DMV. The New York Medicaid eligibility and enrollment system, so a place that's tremendously back end and often really wonky, is focused on customer centric design and making things better. And so when we think about this as work that has happened for a long time since we've been there, when we think about CX as a layer on top of this that amplifies the work that we're already doing, it actually really sets us up to succeed in some really special and meaningful ways. One of them means that, when we take this approach, it means that we have leadership everywhere across the state that already knows and cares about this work. It means that we're not starting from scratch because we get to fit into the things that they've been caring about and working on for years. It means that there are also tenured employees with track records of success out there. One of the things, from 18F in the UK and all these places that I've worked, the place that everything always falls down is that people tend to be hired new. They tend to be brought in, and the stereotype is always, you're 29 with a MacBook and you got a lot of opinions and you don't know how anything works. We don't have that because we've had these teams who showed up and built this and did the work years and years and years before we got here. The state was already primed to understand that this type of work matters, even if they didn't call it CX. We likewise also have these lessons learned about what makes change hard. Trying to do a CX thing is fundamentally not going to be any different than trying to do a lean thing or trying to do a digital design thing or trying to do a Gantt chart for the first time. When we think about this as not just an initiative that's going to fix things, but a body of work that is part of a longer statewide years-long transformation, that makes it easier for us to both not recreate the wheel, but then also not make the same mistakes that the people who came before us made. It also gives us, and this is the great joy, friends we didn't know we had and wins that we didn't know we've won. When we situate the CX work within a larger effort, within a New York state that cares about doing this kind of work, we get to pull on and leverage and treat like allies and friends. We get to amplify stories from years ago and make them relevant again. We get to say that this doesn't mean that we're doing something new because we weren't doing things well enough before. It means that we are doing something new because we are always a state that is doing something new. We are always a state that is pushing the envelope and trying new things and learning. So another place that it ends up being really relevant is when we have teams who have previously done different types of work who then get to learn more about CX specifically. And there have been a few times recently this has really come up. Both product and lean, we have teams that exist in the state. And so some of the ways that we've been talking about CX with them is sitting down and saying, look, we maybe sometimes come to the table using different words or different terms about how we care about things, right? So our CX team, just who we are not typically talking about, process optimization or eliminating waste. We're not saying things like Kanban. That's not the words that we use, right? But at the same time, we're coming out with our own terms. We're coming out with voice of the customer, we're coming out with end-to-end journeys and service design and that kind of work. And so there can sometimes be a tension between those two types of approaches. So what we do is if we need to bring people on, if we need to bring people along with us, we take a step back and we say, hey, let's talk about where we're coming together in the middle. Let's talk about the work that we already agree on. We all agree on the importance of making data-driven decisions. We all agree on the need for systems thinking and continuous improvement. And when we can start from that place of coming from it the same, like prioritizing the same things and caring about the same things, we can then position CX as new words, new terms, new frames, new lenses on top of the things that people have already been thinking about and caring about for years. It makes it easier for folks to adapt and bring this into their vocabulary. and makes them feel like their work is not being replaced or changed or altered. It sort of again brings that it brings everything into a continuous fabric of this is what it's like to keep changing the state over and over again. Another example, so folks in New York have often been pretty familiar with a digital design approach. We've got a handful of teams that are good at it, but also just from the vernacular of user-centered design being around for a while. So when we've talked to teams who've been really steeped in this, we've taken a step back and we've said, okay, so then if you are thinking about the world in terms of things like UI and UX, what people see and what people click on, or how people interact with the system, let CX be a layer on top of this. Let it be something that continues the work that you already care about, the ways that you're framing it into something that's broader than the space you've been allowed to operate in historically. So for teams like this, CX then becomes how people interact across all the touch points. The work that they do, it helps people come along to understand that, the exact same way that they care about an interface or a usability test is the exact same way that somebody might think about process reform or might think about what it's like to go to observe a call center or to be in person waiting in line making something happen. So I'm going to pause here and ask us to open the chat and hopefully have a quick discussion on some of these questions that I think it's helpful to reflect on if you're thinking about how you can let CX amplify the work that you're already doing. So these slides will be shared. I know they're available on the website, so don't feel like this is the only time you'll see these questions. But we often find that questions like these can help people start to work CX into the larger sort of ecosphere. So some of the big ones are thinking about who your allies are, not just in CX, but across the state, across people doing good work. So whose projects have you really admired? What makes them work? What makes them effective? What is one thing that your agency does well, independent of what you call it, that somebody else could learn from? Likewise, what do you already know? Everybody has stories about when they have seen data change somebody's mind or when they have used data to change somebody's mind. Everybody has stories about the hard way of implementing change. Like what are things that you should have known better and you ended up doing anyway, and then you had to learn a lesson. And then what are you already doing? Often bringing CX in is a really, really cool opportunity to give people credit who maybe haven't had the credit that they've deserved before. So being able to say, who do you know that's already doing customer experience work, right? Without the title or without the credit. It's just people who really care about making things better for other people, whatever they call it. And then stepping back, regardless of how we're thinking about it, how we're framing it, what's one project that someone could name or celebrate or scale? So I'm going to pause and ask folks to write some comments in the chat. Feel free to ask any questions and we can go from there.
All right, Desiree wrote community, colleagues, leadership, and other state workers. Great point. What else we got? We have a question in here, Abby, for you.
Sure.
Hannah says, I love the emphasis on tying into existing methods and partnerships in place. Even so, y'all are a small and mighty team of three. So how do you prioritize the work of the central CX team?
Oh gosh, that's such a good question. I will tell you that one of the ways that I am prioritizing the work is by telling my boss that I am going to find her at her home and force her to come up with a prioritization matrix with me. So the work is constantly evolving. For us, we're kind of balancing a few different things. We're always thinking about what's going to have the most impact and the best ROI. We don't have a ton of money. We have a dry appropriation, which basically means we have permission to spend money, but no money to spend. So if we think about what are opportunities to do something that is free, something that brings in other folks, something that's really immediately scalable, that's always something that we want to prioritize. Sometimes we get a lot of guidance from the governor or state leadership, and they will say, we just need you to do this. One of the biggest projects that our office is taking on this year is helping to get nonprofits paid faster. It's an issue in New York State. And so we kind of were plucked out of our plans and put into something that said, all right, you have to figure out how to do this. And so a piece of in addition to the prioritization of work, is also having good boundaries, figuring out what we think is important, making sure that we're pushing back on leadership when it's appropriate to say, what do you want us to deprioritize? And then always trying to be as intentional as possible about like, if my hand is on the keyboard and I'm doing the design, I'm not doing my job well enough. So making sure that we have the mindset of stepping back and saying that we are facilitators, we are connectors, we are very rarely implementers, and figuring out how to be okay with that.
Love that. I'm just like sitting with this, being like, wow, but y'all are, yeah, again, small and mighty, like, dang.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're getting some really good comments in here. Let me read a few of them. I know we won't be able to get to all of them. Luz says, in response to what are we doing? Trying no-cost creative ways to hear directly from customers to guide decisions around service and creation and implementation. Yeah, there is no shortage of creativity in this world, the world of CX, that is. Carrie asks, what is meant by product model? What do you mean by that?
So the way that we think about product is instead of thinking about that it's a tech team's job to keep creating a bunch of individual services, they could be responsible for managing end to end one entire piece of the puzzle. So they are responsible for the design, for the delivery, for the continuous improvement. It's something that we've pulled out of it's Silicon Valley kind of best practice, but through at least the past sort of decade or so, we're seeing it more and more in the public sector. And it's also a place that I think helps people prioritize their work differently, think about themselves as people who really are owners and leaders of a discrete chunk of work, as opposed to just folks who are maybe like overseeing for a vendor who takes responsibility and they don't really know what's going on.
Thank you. All right, I love this comment from Ash in response to what do you already know? Ash says, talking about how changes would benefit customers doesn't work. I have to frame it in terms of the risks that come with maintaining the status quo. So it's that like, what if we don't do this?
Mm-hmm.
What's going to
I think
happen?
that's
I love that framing,
huge.
Ash.
I think that's huge. And I also sometimes it has to be like, you're okay with talking about it in the things that don't convince you personally. Like it is, you can still be incredibly customer centered, even if you are talking about it in the wrong way, because at the end of the day, what you are doing is getting to delivery for the things and the people that matter. All right. I am going to keep us moving along if that's okay. Moving on to the next sort of pillar of all of this, we make CX everyone's mission. So you saw our little small and mighty team, and a very good question about how do we prioritize things. We really, really do not do it alone. I think one of the things that is incredible about how New York has structured this is we have done it in layers that everybody has clear lanes, everybody has responsibility, and everybody works together. The CX office, we exist to be oversight and policy and accountability for the state. Our mission is to deliver on the governor's vision. Our mission, so we sit in the executive chamber alongside the assistant and deputy secretaries. We are political appointees. Like our world is that world, and that's what we do. And that is not sufficient for change. So what does that mean? Okay, well, if we're doing this, then what is the structure on top of that? The New York experience, which I mentioned earlier, it's not just our strategy, it is a group of people that is our CX office. And then I mentioned those two sort of digital front and back end teams. Together, we come together and we are our own unit. We are a thing called NICS that works together to define the strategy, to make sure that we're providing support and tools and tactics that make it possible for people to actually do the kinds of things that are in policy or in recommendations, in guidance. All right, great. So we have created this world where there is stuff out there, but who's actually doing it? Well, then that's the next level. We have our CSSPs, our critical state service providers. They are a handful of high impact, high commitment agencies. We meet with them every single month. We have events where they are constantly spotlighted. They have committed to much deeper and more structured goals. And because of who they are and who they serve, they are the best positioned to have the most change that touches the most people. But again, 3 agencies is not sufficient for larger change. So then we grow from there as well. We have a group called the Task Force that is another handful of agencies who at this point are not, they may have smaller remits. They may not have the staff or capacity to commit to huge end-to-end transformations, but they are there, they are committed, they show up every time. And we have quarterly meetings where everybody gets together in person and talks and shares best practice and figures out what needs to happen next. We have a community of practice where they can interact individually. And so once all of these things come together, that's how we think about the statewide transformation. CX doesn't have to do all of it. All of these things scale on their own to the point where folks are chatting independently, where they are sharing information. They're starting to hire their own CX coordinators. They're starting to come to us with projects, finding their own relationships. It's really incredible to think about, in addition to maybe if I were going to add one thing to what the CX office does, we are also the curator of the communities and the networks. We are there to help make sure that everybody is set up to do this work on their own in as effective and committed and collaborative way as possible. So what does this give us? I would say for this, it really gives us a holistic collection of influences throughout the state. Top down is really important. It's crucial. I think you can't get things done without top down. Top down is a lot. Top down maybe doesn't always get it. Top down doesn't always listen. Bottom up has to be there. And it starts with our frontline staffers. It starts with agencies that are part of this who understand how important it is to start with that perspective, to be able to see it and measure it and honor it and center it. Again, that's sideways influence of the communities coming together. It is our favorite thing when we find out that somebody talked to somebody else about a thing that they already had. Like that success for us is the system moving on its own without us having to be there. It also creates clear lanes of ownership. So again, we know what we're doing. I said earlier, if my hands are on the keyboard, I'm not doing my job well. And I think everybody in every one of those slices understands that piece of the puzzle. They understand what they're doing. It also creates, again, these communities of practice working on complementary challenges. I mentioned earlier, it's great when people find out that they've done other things. One of my favorite recent stories is we've got an agency that is implementing the Affordable Broadband Act in the state. And it is a weird, wonky, sort of quasi-public benefit program where, the public sector is overseeing a private sector collection of vendors who are delivering for people who are low income, better broadband. And they were like, well, how do we talk to people? What do we do? How do we make these connections? Well, what we do is we connect you with New York State of Health, who are our healthcare exchange folks, right? Who it turns out have had a decade of experience doing a really wonky quasi-government program that involves government oversight of private sector administering programs to low-income folks. And so then when you push them together, they share their old tech. They're able to talk about the lessons learned. They're able to talk about how you have to have in-person and phone and paper optimized, not just their digital work. And then continuous incremental improvement. The ways that, if we continue to set standards, if we continue to put things out into the world, if we continue to hold people accountable for things, then gradually the state moves along. And those who are able to show up and be able to make those massive commitments are going to go first. They're going to clear the way. They're going to make it safe for others to come along as they can. And so then how we support one another, I think more tactically, is in 3 different categories. We think about it as strategy and prioritization, right? So that's a lot of frameworks. So for maybe the prioritization one, goals and air cover. Air cover is so massive for us. Guidance and best practice. So again, the templates, the resources, the tools, the things that people need to move forward. And then collaboration and support itself. So people sharing their skills, their expertise, products, going back to the product management model. So let's talk a little bit about what that looks like. One of the best things that I think the CX team has done is be extremely clear about what our goals and our pillars are. And you don't have to have goals or pillars or call it like this, but what it is an incredibly clear, unambiguous statement about what this administration believes good customer experience looks like. So not just what you should be doing, but how you should be doing it. And what this does is this is the air cover for when we can't be there individually, right? If an agency wants to try something, a team wants to try something, and they can't get the buy-in to do it, you know, people might not get the term administrative burden reduction, but now everybody gets reducing the time tax. And if you're getting pushback, I think you got space to say, all right, well, we're kind of being stopped from reducing the time tax here. And is this the way that we want to handle things, right? It gives you a little extra oomph to be able to get things done in environments that aren't always welcoming to getting things done. I mean, same for something like in the pillars, customer-centric design. Even the concept of calling design one of the fundamental pillars of how we do our work can help clear the way, can help make sense to write your procurement a little bit differently, maybe to put user stories in instead of a long list of requirements. Or it can help you get your first UX designer or your first user researcher in place, because you can point to what the governor says, what the administration says, what the chamber says is that we are doing it this way. And so you kind of can't say that it's not. Like it is clear, unambiguous, and it's there from the middle. Guidance and best practice is a place that we have really, really invested in. Our Nix website is just full of resources, content, templates, etc. People don't know where to start often, even if they know that they want to do things. And so we kind of have a grab bag of options. So people can go and they can find out a primer on what plain language really is. But then they can also see that in our digital first standards that we are holding plain language standards to 8th grade readability. And kind of what's not even in here is additional things that again had been done before we got here. Like it's easier to find the space to teach each other about plain language when you know that you're being held to digital first standards about plain language, because 3 or 4 years ago, there was a ballot initiative passed where, or sorry, that there was a law passed where all ballot initiatives have to be written to the 8th grade level. Like when we can create this seamless tapestry of this is how we treat people and this is what we care about, I think it makes it a lot easier to get things done. And again, sometimes this can get really as tactical as individual templates. We are very rarely telling people to the letter how they should be doing things, but we also recognize that sometimes people just want something to react to. So we've also invested a lot of time and effort in creating things that people can just pick up and run with. They're not behind, a login and password. It's just go to the website, steal it, run with it. So here is a survey example, and it's not revolutionary, but it's there and it's coming from the governor's office. And so you kind of know it's safe to use. And same with, there's a job description for a customer experience strategist. It's something that we've used to recruit internally. It's something we've pushed to our CSSPs to use. But again, like if you aren't sure that you want to invest in this new job, it can be the difference to be able to go to what the governor is saying and say, actually, they've even prescribed it as much as like, here are the key responsibilities. We know that we will be able to hire like this. We know that we will be able to incent like this. We'll be able to pay like this. And then collaboration and support. This is an ongoing journey for us, again, because, we're a small and mighty team, and most of our teams are as well in the broader community. But we try and put together as much as possible, whether that's, again, like self-serve communities of practice. We're kicking off a teams group across agencies. It feels small, but it's important. Our digital service team is kicking off their innovation labs where they're bringing together folks for workshops and roundtables. The CX team I mentioned just did our New York Experience Summit, this huge opportunity to bring people together and share not just national best practice, but what agencies and individuals have been doing to get everybody together and help them feel even closer to that larger community of practice. So I'll pause again. So some more questions to ask that you can ask yourselves, and I would love folks to reflect on in the chat. So what is your role? You can't do everything. I can't do everything. I don't want to do everything. So what is the right space to operate in for you, who you are, what you care about, where you live? Being a standard setter is phenomenal. You can be a community builder. You can be a resource maker. All of that is an important piece of the larger puzzle. And then who do you need help with to do even more of that? Thinking about your goals. So your goals collectively, individually, is there shared understanding? I found out the other day that one of the issues that we're facing is that people are using the word simple differently across one of our agencies. And so, like, it has everybody got in a room and agreed what these things are and what we mean when we say them. How do you know? And then what is your short, medium, long term vision for change? It's okay if you don't have all the answers to it. It can be important to just know that that's a space where you have to grow. And then again, going back to what you can give, are there case studies? Are there templates, handbooks other people can use? We found in our not-for-profit project that one of the best things that we've had is people who are really nosy and demanding, right? To be able to say, well, we went and we bothered the department of the budget and we wouldn't let up until they gave us an answer. Well, great. Now let's tell everybody else what that answer is. And then what can you personally teach that your peers may not know? And again, thinking about it in terms of, we don't know what everybody knows, but what do you think is out there that is something that people could benefit from?
All right. While folks are typing in some responses, quick question that we got from a couple of attendees.
Sure.
Can you explain what air cover is?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
asking. Air cover is doing new things is frightening, especially if you feel like you can get in trouble. If you have people at a different position, often higher up than you or in a different sort of space, who are saying, we're going to have your back if you do this, then it makes it easier to do that thing. So air cover can be, I will personally tell somebody they're okay to do this, or I will publish something in 18-point font very prominently and link people to it. So if they're getting pushback, they can link people to the website and say, hey, the governor's office said that we can do this. So we can do this.
About that. Thank you. Like, I have all these ideas that I'm like writing down in front of
Yes.
me now. All right, let's see what we got. Ash says, in response to your questions, I love providing trustworthy templates that are easy to use and find, saves us time not having to reinvent the wheel, and reduces rework and risk. Absolutely, Ash.
And if folks are
Um,
looking for more templates, so
yeah, I
many
know.
digital services, so many customer experience services around the country have published this stuff. Just tons and tons and tons of it. Don't limit yourself just to the US. Google whatever you want, and Canada or Australia or New Zealand, or if you speak a language that is not English, Google the countries that speak those languages, because there is a tremendous amount out there. And people who care about this are generally pretty good about sharing their work.
We have a question in our Q&A. How do you gain buy-in, especially with leaders or key partners who don't currently prioritize or understand the value of focusing on CX work?
So this is exactly in the next section, but
Okay.
quick spoiler. It's just meeting people where they are and talking about the things they care about. Whoever mentioned earlier about having to frame things in terms of risk, even though sometimes maybe that doesn't feel like the most productive or even the nicest way or the most accurate way, that gets the thing done. It hold your nose and do it is my opinion on it. All right. So I will move on to our final sort of chunk, our section. We make our work a good experience. And I picked this picture really specifically. I think so. This is Tanya Webster, our chief customer experience officer, and then Drew Rye, who is our CIO. And it's one of those things where it's like it would be very easy to look and see, well, you care about that, you care about that, and you must be at loggerheads. And they adore one another. They are, I think they serve as mentors to each other in different opportunities. They collaborate. Like it's just, we are a state that has really striven to make our work, a good experience. And so I will put in this little cartoon that I really love, this concept of, do as I say, not as I do. So if we are going to position ourselves as people who are really going to help you be better at customer experience, we have to be a good experience for our customers. And I say this, and I will confess, as a person who did not send their slides until a very late time, I am not practicing what I preach on this one. So full accountability on my part. Um, but we are in this interesting place where we are expected to help bring people along and show them new and better ways of doing things. And if we're not good, kind, useful people, there's no reason to listen to us, especially a team like ours that is political. One of the easiest ways to get rid of any political is to stonewall, to sort of sit and wait until the administration changes, right? So, like, it is so incumbent upon us to be really good and to be really good to work with. And so, how we make our experiences as good as possible, that again falls into sort of three key pillars. We really, really treat people like experts. I've been in digital services teams for so long, and when they fall apart, it's because we act like know-it-alls. So one of the things that is incredible about New York and about my team specifically is that we are never know-it-alls. We are people who are so excited, so proud, so honored to be there supporting. We tell really great stories. We meet people where they are. We make sure that what we're saying is simple and targeted and compelling. And then we make a big point, and this is something that I've learned very strongly from Tanya: no asking without giving. There is nothing worse than an unfunded mandate. So when we show up in a room, people are excited to see us because they know that we're probably there to offer something, to be something, not just to ask for something. So what does this give us specifically? It gives us a lot of credibility, right? That it's not just that we are talking the talk, we're able to walk the walk. We respond, we are there, we are nice, we are kind, we are knowledgeable, we understand the power distance inherent in being chamber. We are thoughtful. We being those kinds of people makes it a lot easier to get access to the things that are really truly pain points. Again, it's so easy and so tempting to say, oh, things are great, everything's wonderful. So the more that we are kind and thoughtful people, the more willing people are to show us what they're really struggling with. And that gets to root causes easier. That fixes things that really stink easier. It makes us more useful colleagues and better at delivering for New York State. And then what this gives us at the end of the day is everything we learn from everyone else. If we were the experts on everything, we would be so incredibly boring. Three people, we know what we know. We live in a state of 30 million, right? There are thousands and thousands of people who work for the state of New York. When we show up in the right way, we get to constantly learn about where people have been successful, what they're struggling with, how to do things better, how to do our own things better. It makes work nicer. So let's talk a little bit about tactically what this looks like when we treat people like experts. We really, really try our best to co-create solutions. When I say like not prescribing them, it's so rare that we would have the right subject matter experience to even be able to advocate in that specific way. One of my favorite things that I ever heard at 18F was tech talent is cheap and abundant, but being able to run an agency is a rare and precious skill. And that is something that I live my professional life by very much. And I see us doing as a team as well. We are here to be the plumbers and the unblockers and the people who are supporting you to know how to do things. And again, like, we give people tools and frameworks because it can help them run faster without us. We're not the bottleneck, but then we trust people to use them. We have a template for CX. I have never checked in with anybody to see, oh, are you recruiting people using this template? Did you interview people in this way? Like, why would I care and how would I know? Like, that we say this stuff is here to help you, to make you go faster. And if it's not right for you, run with it, right? Run with something else, right? There's accountability there, but we really trust people to get to the solutions in the ways that make sense to them. And we also spotlight our successes. We give everyone a chance to lead. The picture here is our quarterly task force, which is one of my favorite, we have 4 a year. It's one of my favorite meetings. We are in the Blue Room, which is this really stately, incredible room in the Capitol building in Albany. We have name tags. We have photographers. It is solemn and important, and people dress up because being together and talking about customer experience is solemn and important, and you should dress up. You should get to be in a nice room, right? Like creating that environment and then saying, hey, I know that you guys have only been doing this for a little while. I know that you may not be super confident yet. What you have is miles ahead of where some of the other folks in this room are. Can we give you 15 minutes? Can we give you 10 minutes? Can we let you talk about what's hard for you? Being able to position people as being leaders within also a leadership group within the state, I think makes a big difference. Telling great stories, finding the way to make people care about stuff, even if they are not inclined to care about stuff, is massively important. So some of the ways that we really do this are we have, I mentioned Samantha Sleffer, our Empire Fellow. She is really incredible at comms and messaging and also has like the remit to do it. And so we're really focused on telling stories in a human impact way, finding ways to reframe the norm, finding stories about frontline workers or residents or employers, anybody who is a real New Yorker, as opposed to a chunk of a bureaucracy, makes a huge difference. I mentioned earlier that more people like direct file than like ice cream. Like that's a really intentional move because people remember that. They don't remember 98%, and 98% doesn't really mean anything anyway, sort of abstractly. We really focus on simple, targeted language that meets people where they are. We try to eliminate jargon as much as possible. We try to focus on using the words and the language that people use. We will read your strategy document before we come and talk to you. We will do a deep dive on your website. We will sort of like come correct by demonstrating that we have done the research to get who you are. And then we really talk about other people as often as we can. It's funny, when I started, I was almost a little embarrassed of like, we're out there, who wants to hear from us all the time? But then when I started really reading the messaging that we were putting out, it was very rarely about who we were, and it was always about what other people had done. So the pictures here are, a really fantastic blog post about a call center that has been in place for 20 years, right? People aren't talking about it anymore, but we're going to go in and we're going to publish something in 2025 about all of that work that they've been doing because it's still crucial. It's still important. It still makes a huge difference. We spend an inordinate amount of time applying for awards for people because we want them to win, and we know that people don't also have time to do it. New York, like we don't tend to ask for or win awards for ourselves because, again, why would we? Like the point is what's being done at the agency level or the team level or the individual level. And if we can invest some time in crafting a really good application, then that helps set the people up to. And then finally, this is a picture of Tanya Webster on stage at the Qualtrics X-Force Summit this year. Shaping the future of government, she's not talking about the CX office and she's not talking about Nix. What she's talking about is individual agencies doing really incredible work. And she's talking to a big corporate audience about how New York is one of the country's hugest employers, helping them understand that, there's no such thing as good enough for government work, that this is very thoughtful and targeted and committed effort to continuously improve what the state is doing. And then finally, no asking without giving. It truly is the core of how we work. When we go to folks, we always highlight their successes and their good work alongside recommendations. At 18F, I learned that like the way that you do the work and the way that you are most effective is by pointing out all the things that they could have done better. And then we would get confused why people got mad at us. One of the things that our team does magnificently is focuses on, even if it's small, even if it's just a couple of times, saying, the way that you did this, you knocked it out of the park. The way that you are approaching this is exactly right. And then how do you build on it? How do you amplify it? How do you change things? This is also particularly important because of where we are in chamber. Like, it is scary for people sometimes when we show up. People think they are going to be in trouble. And so it is not effective to show up and just sort of like lambast them about what they could have done better. It is the right thing to do to say, what we are doing is we are here because we want to tell you about what you've really, really done successfully. We also leverage our personal networks. Tanya and Samantha and I just by dint of being in this for a long time, have a huge amount of information. No, Beverly, please, no, I need you to go. A huge amount of information about sort of who we know, who has money, who has time, who has influence. And we're able to then connect people because people rarely have every piece of the puzzle they need. And so that's a huge part of what we do, saying, you might not know this person at Code for America, but we're going to go. We're going to get you there. We're going to see if we can get you funding. And then finally, we really do our best to help keep Chamber focused on what makes life better for New Yorkers. Chamber is a spot of policy and oversight, and like, again, a lot of really wonky, nerdy people focused very deeply on things. And so it is sort of our privilege to be able to be a group of people who are constantly trying to pull it back to what matters and who we're serving and why we're doing all of this. So what you see here is a screen grab from the governor's state of the state. Every year we release, the governor's huge agenda, what she's doing. It's tied into the budget. And since the office was instituted, there has always been information in there, content about what we are doing to make government work better for people. And again, like, there isn't really a mention here of why we would have a CX team, et cetera, et cetera. We're talking about what cyber has done. We're talking about what DMV is doing. We're talking about what Snap and WIC are doing. We're positioning it. So then the final questions to ask when you're thinking about sort of how you can show up in the right way and make sure that people are as able to listen as possible. How do you level that playing field? How do you position your peers as experts? This is so crucial in CX to not be a know-it-all, and take it from me, a person who spent a very long time being a know-it-all. What does co-creation look like on your team? How are people working together to find the answers? What are the stories that you can tell? What do you frame around your human impact instead of technical improvement? What are the things that people are saying in your leadership that they already care about? And you just weasel in your thing to make it align there. Who needs to hear about what you're doing? What do they care about? What will convince them to learn more? And what can you offer? Like, are there obstacles that you can help clear? Can you make connections? What would help somebody else move ahead? So I'll pause there and give us a few minutes to reflect on that.
Awesome. Thank you, Abby. And I'm just over here so motivated about everything that you're saying and want everyone to know how much all of us here at Your Washington are excited about telling your stories, and how much we've learned from Abby and her team in terms of being like, our job is to highlight the amazing work that y'all are doing. So please help us help you do that, right?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, please put your comments and responses in the chat. We would love to read them out loud. While we're waiting for some comments, I'll read some questions that are coming in, if that sounds good,
Please,
Abby.
please.
Okay, so Megan asks, how do you prioritize which experiences get prioritized first? So how do you balance quantity of people impacted versus smaller groups or who are most severely impacted? So like immigrant New Yorkers, people with disabilities. They say, as a former New Yorker, the unemployment experience jumps to the front of my mind.
Yes. Yes. Well, it's a constant balancing act, right? And we do have to take a lot of direction from the governor. So I will say it's not entirely we don't have full agency, but a thing that is really important to us is to make sure that we are thinking intentionally about that balance between quantity and impact, but then also pulling from the other teams who are doing incredible work. Like, the most important thing I did for accessibility this past week is know the right person to ask about accessibility who could come in and bring resources and time and effort to actually move something meaningfully forward. The most useful thing that I can do for making sure that we're impacting a lot of people is by understanding what our sort of big overarching sort of call center priorities or things like our design system exists that can be run with immediately and implemented by a vendor or by an in-house team or anybody who has this. Like, one of the things that we're doing in addition to sort of like balancing that quantity and quality is also saying, like, how can we direct the traffic as efficiently as possible to the other people who are also focused on?
Yeah, triage. It's
exactly. It's
like.
triage.
Yeah.
It's triage.
Great. Jesse asks, how did you start getting the positive customer stories from staff? Any
Oh,
advice on
so
that front?
yes. Nobody ever wants to talk about themselves. Ask them to talk about what other people have done.
Mm.
My favorite case study that I ever did was these three really sullen men who refused to talk about anything that they had done well until one of them said, "Well, we what I got to do is talk about how great Steve has been." Right. And that unlocked it. When you can tell a story about the person next to you, then that starts to create something much bigger.
Love that. Love that. And there's a great plug for our customer experience employee of the quarter that we are accepting nominations for. So nominate your coworkers who are great at doing CX work and great at customers. Um, all right, we have a couple minutes remaining.
Mhm.
I want to read this comment from Susan. They say, I was lucky enough to do some agile procurements with 18F, and it changed my perspective on procurement processes and the CX experience. I appreciate this discussion as it mirrors my experiences in that realm. I am still advocating for some of the agile processes to improve procurement. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. It is 18F went out in a blaze of glory. And so we are one of the most special things about being somebody who was there before is seeing how many people thought about or read or cared about the work that we do.
All right, and with 2 minutes left, I have one last question for you, and I'm going to
Mhm.
make it about data because that's what I love. So Megan asks,
Yes.
while UX is relatively easy to measure, how do you approach measuring customer experience? With a small team, are there scalable approaches that you'd be able to apply across departments?
Yes. I think that there are things that you can do immediately. There are, can you send a survey? Like, do you have a survey monkey that you can send out? Like, what is there that can be done? That is a piece of the puzzle. Are there teams that you can rely on who are already doing similar work and scale some of their approaches? There are things, sometimes it's like a clipboard and a piece of paper at the state fair has been really useful for us, right? So figuring out what you can do with the tools that you have I think is really really huge. Again, we have the privilege of having teams who are really focused on doing their own pieces of this work, and so one of the things that we've been trying to do is set up some teams who are really great at analytics to have access to more tools, or to make sure that we're bringing in best practice who can share work that they've done that has been really successful.
Same.
Have a lunch and learn. It feels small, but it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, just you talking about getting all the brilliant minds in one room to share, no matter where they're at. Like that's informative, that's helpful. Just start somewhere. Ah, Abby, well, thank you
Okay.
so much. I wish we could talk about this for the rest of the afternoon because I know it'd be really easy to do, but we just appreciate your time and your brilliance so much. Thank you for sharing all of your wisdom with us. And for all of the attendees, thank you so much for joining us. We hope that this information was really informative. And please, 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 we ask if you are able to please fill out the 3 question super short survey at the end of this session so that we can continue to measure and understand how we can do better, how we're doing in planning these sessions and executing them. So thank you all
Yes.
so much. We will see you at 3 o'clock for our very last session of the conference. Thank you, Abby. Thank you,
Thank
Kelly. Thank you
you.
to our closed captioners. Have a great
Thank you so
afternoon.
much.